You walk into a chamber. Snakes for hair. Roll a saving throw against petrification. Failed? Your character is now a marble statue. Pull out a blank character sheet. Let's roll up a new fighter. Next player. Now picture that statue. 500 pounds of stone. It used to be your friend. It's still wearing all their gear. Still carrying the key to lower levels. Still holding 2 weeks of rations you cannot afford to leave behind. Do you carry it out, or do you leave it in the dark and hope nothing breaks it before you can get back? That question, that horrible, impossible question, is what Save or Die is actually about. And if your Medusa encounter has never ended there, you haven't been running it by the book. If you came from 5e, Save or Die probably reads like sadistic garbage. A random dice check that resets hours of work with no warning and no counterplay. And if you run it that way, admittedly, you're right. It is garbage. But that's not what the Moldvay BX rules actually tell you to do. When you look at the procedures baked into the old text, the Medusa isn't a random death machine. She's a tense, high-stakes, tactical problem. One, the players have every tool to survive if the referee runs the environment instead of just jumping straight to the dice. By the end of this video, you'll have a complete procedure for running the Medusa that feels terrifying, fair, and completely player-driven. No cheap deaths, no complaints about the rules, just one of the most memorable sessions your table has ever had. So let's get into it. First thing, information. In an old school dungeon, information is what keeps characters alive. You do not surprise your players with a Medusa. You don't have her step out from behind a corner like a jump scare. Not unless the party is being reckless, running through the dark, through an unmapped corridor, then maybe it's appropriate. But no, the dungeon tells the story before anyone looks her in the eye. Think about what her lair actually looks like after years of occupation. The surrounding rooms aren't empty. They're the historical record of every creature that made a wrong choice. And don't just say, you see statues. That's nothing. That's flavor text that washes right off. Describe the poses. A goblin frozen mid-stride, looking back over its shoulder in absolute terror. An old adventurer with one arm raised, cloak pulled up to shield his eyes. Almost made it. Statues that are chipped, broken, or missing limbs because something has been moving them to keep the paths clear. And then add the senses. The smell of calcified dust that catches at the back of your throat. A scraping sound, stone on stone, from a room just ahead. The hiss of serpents drifting out of the dark beyond the edge of your torchlight. By the time the party reaches her chamber, there should be no ambiguity. They should know exactly what's waiting. The game isn't about tricking the players into some random death roll. It's about watching them decide how to handle a hazard they understand completely. That's the first piece. Now, what happens when they step inside? Most people assume the Medusa encounter works like this. You look, you roll, you find out if you die. That's not BX. BX explicitly supports a player choice before any dice touch the table. A character can choose to fight while deliberately looking away, fighting effectively blind, and take a flat -4 penalty to hit in exchange for complete immunity to the gaze. That choice belongs entirely to the player. I call it the gaze exchange. And why? Because every round at that table, everyone is trading something. Safety for accuracy, vision for survival. Here's what makes it work as designed. It's not a puzzle with one right answer. Do you take the -4, swing into the dark, and keep yourself safe? Or do you risk looking her in the eye for a clean shot, knowing that one bad roll ends your character story right there? That is a real decision. It has weight, it has consequences, and it creates exactly the kind of table tension that people remember for years. Now, tracking who is looking where is literally where most referees get sloppy. Here's the procedure, step by step. At the start of every combat round, before initiative dice hit the table, you stop and ask each player a single, simple question. Are you looking or are you averting? Get a clear answer from every person at the table. No vague BS middle ground. If the fighter elects to look away, he takes his -4 to hit. That's his trade. But it runs both ways. Because he can't track her movements, the Medusa gains a +4 to hit him on any physical attack. She can see his openings. He cannot see her incoming blows. Now watch what happens when you add another player to the mix. The thief wants to slip around to the flank for a backstab. She decides to look, takes no penalty, moves normally. But the moment her eyes lock onto the Medusa to aim that strike, she rolls a saving throw against turn to stone. Right now, before the dagger lands, you have an asymmetric battlefield. The fighter is an anchor, taking hits, swinging blind, holding her attention. The thief is a calculated risk, burning a saving roll for positioning and damage. Neither is wrong, both are player choices. And that's the gaze exchange running as designed. The dice aren't driving the story. They're responding to decisions the players have already made. Now, if your players brought a polished steel mirror down into the dungeon, boarded off the equipment list, carried it through the dark, and they deployed it during a fight, reward that. Full stop. Some refs treat the mirror like a metagame exploit and quietly nerf it, though. This is a mythological problem-solving situation. Perseus used a shield. Your players are going to use a 10-coin mirror. That's the game working correctly. Here's a clean ruling that rewards the ingenuity without breaking the difficulty. A character using a mirror to track the Medusa's movements takes a -2 penalty to hit instead of -4. It acknowledges the advantage, it still carries a cost. And it also requires one full hand to operate. So no two-handed weapons, no shield, at least for that character during the round that they're using the mirror. The player who remembered to buy that mirror 6 sessions ago should feel like a freaking genius right now. Let them. Let them. Let's go back to that statue. In a lot of modern games, petrification means the player sits on their phone for 2 hours while the rest of the group faces the dungeon. The character is effectively dead, and everyone knows it. In BX, a petrified companion isn't a dead character sheet. It's an immediate, physical, logistics problem for the people still standing. That statue weighs 500 pounds. It's wearing the party's extra rations, the torches, and probably a significant cut of the treasure. It might be holding the only key to the dungeon's lower level. It used to be your friend. It has a face. That face is frozen in whatever expression it had at the exact moment the gaze hit. Do you leave it behind in the dark, where the next wandering monster might chip an arm off? Do you try to haul 500 pounds of stone fighter up the dungeon stairs, through the wilderness, and all the way to a high-level cleric who can cast stone to flesh? Well, that's an adventure. That's a session, maybe 2. that nobody planned for and nobody will forget. The escape from the dungeon becomes a different dungeon. Managing that weight against your ration count, your torch supply, and your random encounter rolls turns a mechanical failure into a story the table tells for years. Now that is what Save or Die is for. So the Medusa is not broken. The Save or Die mechanic isn't a bad design. It only fails when the ref treats the game like a sterile series of combat rounds instead of a living environment where choices carry weight. Build the lair so the players know what's coming. The gaze exchange so the decision belongs to them. Let the mirror trick pay off, and if someone fails that save, make the aftermath matter. That's how you run a classic game that feels fair, dangerous, and unforgettable. If this is how you want to play, buy the book with attention turned all the way up to 11. Hit subscribe. There's a whole dungeon's worth that's still there to cover. Tavern minions keep the tap room running, and their support is literally priceless. Keep your torches lit. Keep your eyes on the floor. God bless. And I'll see you on the other side.